So I told myself that this year I was going to photograph more sunsets because in the last couple of years I've focused on sunrises. So we're 3 months in and so far I've not photographed a single one, and that needs to change. So today I'm out on the Great Ridge in the Peak District, and it's one of Britain's favourite walks. Absolutely beautiful, but I don't know if I'll get a sunset because all day the weather's been so changeable. I've got about 45 minutes to get to the other end of the ridge, and golden hour starts in about an hour. So let's crack on.
I took this photo as I was heading off because I love these little hillocks. Yes, I know the sky is blown out, so don't shoot me down over that one. You can see in the footage behind me that the sky was a complete whiteout, and there's not much you can do with that apart from go black and white. But the reason I took this photo is to show you something about composition, and that is triangles. Now, apart from the trees on the left-hand side, the whole image is made of triangles. Here, here, and here. Another one here, a little one there, a big triangle there. In fact, there's a whole group of triangles there, and there's some large triangles there. This whole composition is about triangles. Even if there's a blown out sky, I still really like the black and white version, so perhaps some rules are made to be broken for some images. Here's some footage of a potential image below the ascent of Mam Tor. The road has been used in photography, film and adverts lots of times, including a current advert with a roller skating tortoise. In this light, it was beautiful, but I wasn't going to take a shot because the parked cars had ruined it for me. From the top of Mam Tor, you can look down onto Winnett's Pass, which you might remember from a video I made about cloud inversions. But enough of that, I need to get over here to Back Tor, where I plan to hopefully start my sunset shoot, if we get a sunset. So let's crack onwards.
So this gate behind me is a real honeypot location. It's one that people often photograph at sunrise rather than sunset because you often get a cloud inversion over Hope Valley just over here, and they'll shoot through this gate and use the path as a leading line up to the hill. So it's a real nice shot. I've never actually taken it myself because there's very little you can do with it other than the shot that everybody takes, and I'm not particularly into doing that kind of thing, but maybe one day I might take it.
As I walked upwards from Hollins Cross, the cloud began to give way and reveal the setting sun, so I had to take a picture here. You can see the path of the Great Ridge leading up to Mam Tor, with a classic dry stone wall along the side of the path, and the sun starting to set towards Kinder Scout. But now onwards to finally get to Back Tor.
So I've reached Back Tor and the golden hour light is just kicking off. Now, this hill, I always think it looks like it should have been in, or could have been in, Game of Thrones with a little fort sat on the top, the Knights of Back Tor, or something like that. But I do love this hill, and we're just getting some golden light coming off some of the stones that make up the path leading to the top. Now, the most common shot used with this hill is from down here, and people use the curvy path as a leading line to take you up to the top. And that's absolutely the right thing to do. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a big fan of taking the shot that everybody else takes. So I'm starting off with a shot here. This little tree that's just behind me, I'm using that to frame the hill. So the arms of that tree are coming out and just going over the top of those pine trees in the background and the tree at the top of the hill. And I think that'll look really nice. I'll probably crop it to a 16:9 just to get a little bit of this foreground out the way. But I think that's going to make a really nice shot. So I'm going to keep going at this whilst the light is looking good. So there's a bit of cloud now that's gone in front of the sun, and it's causing that orange colour to be a bit muted. But behind the hill, we've got some lovely dark clouds, and it's making something of a moody shot. There's actually some guys that are up on the cliff that I'm a little bit worried about, and I don't normally include humans in my photo, but they're standing right on the edge of a precipice, you know, something that they could potentially fall off. It is a little bit worrying, but there's nothing I can do from here. But I think it's going to add something to the shot. Let me show you. So here's the photo that I just shot, and if I zoom in, you can see that there are some people stood right on the edge of the cliff, which is a little bit worrying, but I actually think it adds something to the shot. Even though I don't normally take photos with people in them, it does just give a sense of scale of this hill. And I quite like the fact that the contrast at the bottom of the shot, it just drops away into nothing, and you've got those mixed clouds in the background. I'm really looking forward to editing this one.
So although I was slightly worried about them at the time, I'm not sure why. They were grown men, even if one of them was stood in a position I wouldn't want to be. But it definitely helped to give a sense of scale.
So I've just come across this shot and it literally fell into my lap. And when I say literally, I was walking down this hill, slipped, landed on my backside here, looked up, saw these two trees with the sun poking through them, and I thought that'd make a lovely shot. So I've composed it so that the bank leading up here is diagonal from about the second one across on the bottom row of the composing by thirds grid, going up the vertical to the second point on the composing by thirds grid. And I've got the sun just in the background poking through behind the smaller tree. Now I've put the mist filter on, which you'll have seen in the video that I did recently about wildlife and filters, and I've carried on using this kit for my landscape photos as well, so I really do like it. And I'm just also using a self timer because the ground that I'm on here is really soft. You probably all know about this, but stick the self timer on the same as you would do if you were taking a photo of yourself. I've gone for 5 seconds, and that will allow time for everything to stabilize before the shot is taken. Okay, so we've pretty much lost the sun, but I'm going to carry on because I'm thinking there are potentially some shots that I can get in blue hour. Fingers crossed, I don't know. But the sun has just gone down over Kinder Scout, which is the highest point in the Peak District. For those who know the area, at this time of year, it's kind of setting behind Jacob's Ladder. As the year goes on, as we get to the summer, it'll set behind Rush Up Edge, and I think there'll be even more opportunities this way shooting along the Great Ridge. But for now, the sky has been absolutely fantastic apart from one annoying air contrail, but I've managed to miss that, so I've not got that in the composition. I've got the long lens on, so the Tamron 70 to 180. I'm only at just over 100, maybe something like 115. And the sky has been brilliant. So I've had the bottom third of the picture filled up with the land, that little bit of Jacob's Ladder really leading up into Kinder Scout, and the background has just been the sky. And I'm bracketing the shots so that I can try and get some of that fiery sky that we've just seen with a little bit of light on the land. So the light's going to look a little bit hazy across the land at this time of night, particularly as it's somewhat silhouetted, but I'm hoping that when I get those together, those bracketed shots, I can get something that looks really nice. Fingers crossed.
So here's the photo. A very simple composition, but I like it. Now, you might think that this is all about the sky colour, but it's as much about the layers in the land, and I'll show you how I got to it. So here are the raw files. The first one, exposed for the sky, has very little contrast in the land. The second one, exposed to bring out those layers in the land with a slightly longer shutter speed, has a more brightly exposed sky. And the third one is the compromise shot, partway between the first two. And when I bring these 3 files together using the photo merge function in Lightroom, I get a single image that makes the most of the dynamic range available. Detail is in both the highlights and in the shadows. So now, it's time to move on for Blue Hour.
Now for Blue Hour, I was really hoping for a moonrise. And I've worked out using photo pills that the moon was going to rise just behind the Hope Valley cement works behind me. Now it's a pretty ugly building, but it's really famous, and any time you'll have seen a photo from this location where there's a cloud inversion, you'll have seen that chimney from Hope Valley cement works puffing out smoke just above the cloud inversion. So it is quite a famous building, and I'd have loved to have got a moonrise just behind that chimney, but I can't see any moon right now. It looks like in that direction we've got full cloud.
I love Blue Hour photography, and for my first shot I got a simple composition of this silhouette of a broken fence, with the last light leaking over the horizon from the sun that had already set. Simple but effective.
So it's so dark now, I'm going to have to use this torch to illuminate my face. I don't know whether that's going to work well, but I am looking up the line of the ridge and I'm going for some long exposure shots just to try and bring out some of the colours. Now, I'm currently at 1/30th of a second and I'm going to illuminate some of the near stones with my torch, but what I'm aiming to do is bring out some of the blue. And what I'm really hoping for is that by using the torch I can bring out some of the colours in the stones. Now these stones are from a demolished dry stone wall, but they're making a really nice line leading up along the ridge up to the next hill. So let's take this shot.
So the torch worked well to bring out the colours of those stones, in contrast with, well, everything else in the scene that had that blue hue. But I didn't like the composition, and that's because of the path coming in from the right. It's too distracting, and it's a stronger leading line up to the hills than the stones are. So I got a second composition using the path as my leading line. By now it had got so dark that I had to use a 30-second exposure and open up the aperture to f3.5 just to get a fairly well balanced scene. And this meant that the foreground was sharp but the background hill isn't. But I don't mind that in this case. By this time there was no way I could carry on filming. All the lights had gone, as you can see from this footage from my phone, with the torch illuminating the path. I had to climb and descend Mam Tor in the pitch black. Even though I didn't get the type of sunset I wanted, I was largely happy with the photos I'd taken, especially this one. I've got more videos about nature photography, including wildlife, landscapes, macro and woodland, so maybe check out this one. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.